Okay, so we are live, I think. Still haven't seen it pop up on the screen. Oh, yes, we are live. We are live. Yes, we are. It's good to have you here. Welcome to the Sunday service. Hello, Ricky Finney. How are you doing, man? Not expecting a very busy one today because Dublin is playing Laois today, I think, in GA. And the sun is shining. So I wouldn't be expecting too many people in for the Sunday service today. But we will continue unabated because we always do. No matter what, we always try and get to the end of the Sunday service every Sunday. Although I do start with a little bit of sad news today, in that normally car PR people, so the people who give me press cars or give me access to press cars and things, are someone you deal with when you're getting cars, and someone you deal with when, you know, on a few occasions a year, but not very much. But unfortunately, there was one lady who was in Don Hall PR, it's actually called, that deals with press cars from Mercedes, and her name was Maeve Barry. And early this morning, late last night, she passed away after being ill for some time. And she leaves quite a big hole in the PR industry because she was an ultimate professional and totally one of a kind in that respect. She was the only woman in the history of all time, or man, or PR person, to ever say no to me for getting a press car. She just said no at the beginning, and that was an eye-opener. She had the bravery, the honesty to be able to just say no instead of just ignoring me, which is what most other PRs were doing at the beginning. They just ignored you till you went away or stopped asking or whatever it was. But she didn't. She just said, no, you can't have press cars. We'll revisit it again in a few months. And she did. And of course, I got access to all the Mercedes press cars in the end, and dealt with Maeve on many happy occasions for many things. So rest in peace. For those who may know her, she is on rip.ie. It's Maeve Barry. The funeral will probably be sometime next week. And hopefully her friends and family are completely in my thoughts today. Particularly Hall PR, where she worked mostly, with Don and all of the family there too. So hopefully it'll all come back to normal. But moving on, last week I was in Portugal with Kia, where we tested the new Ceed, no apostrophe. The apostrophe is gone. Bad SEO. Isn't that amazing? To change the name of a car because it was bad search engine optimization. Really, C apostrophe EED was not good. But it's now just called Ceed. All in capitals as well, I noticed, on the back of the car. Turns out it's actually a very, very good car. Very clever, very well done. There are some really big, glaringly obvious problem points. The speedo and the rev counter are really reflective, so you can see everything, like everything. It's very strange. You can't really see everything properly, so that's a problem. But other than that, they brought us to Portimao racetrack, where we went down to the go-kart section of the racetrack with the cars and zoomed around there for a while. I watched some Jaguar I-Pace things being towed out as well. You'll see a vlog that came out yesterday on my channel about that. If you want to look at it, like 1,000 people have watched already, so that's okay. What beeped? Something beeped. How weird. Something beeped on my table. I don't know what it was. Never heard that beep before. That's curious. Kia part video. Oh, Andy was watching the Kia. See, there's a Kia video. It's not actually about Kia. There's no real car review, and it's just more about climbing mountains and what I saw and what I did. Hopefully you're enjoying those kind of vlog things, because tomorrow I go to Monaco. We're going to test the Peugeot 508, and the Peugeot Rifter will also be there. So that's tomorrow. I'll be in Monaco for maybe 3 days. I don't think I'm back till late on Wednesday night. Very late on Wednesday night. So if you're around the Monaco area, around Nice, Monaco, maybe some of the Col de Torinis or anything like that, sort of, I'll be up around that direction as well. So if you want to drop by and say hello, it's okay. And secondary notification to that as well, next Saturday morning, I will be appearing in Pilsen Auto in Sandiford. If you want to drop into that. I'm judging a Skoda Octavia RS competition, seemingly. I don't know. But I'm dropping in for that. So I think it's at 11:30 or so next Saturday morning in Pilsen Auto in Sandiford. So they've asked me to come along and judge that competition. And I'll bring a Skoda Kodiaq Sport, I think, the first one they've done in the sport mode for a while. So we'll see what that looks like, which I think is going to be the same kind of one that they brought around the racetrack recently. Portugal was brilliant. Ricky Finney was absolutely great. Lovely trip. A bit long, but a lovely trip. Possibly not. It was a bit busy as well because it was actually one of the other journalists was seeing a vlog. It was his birthday, so it got kind of busy in that respect as well. Thanks, Eric. Enjoyed the video from Portugal. It's very good. If you haven't checked it out, you should do. I've also put out today. I put out last week's Sunday service as a podcast. So if you go over to Podbean or you go to Apple iTunes, is it iTunes or whatever that thing, the podcast thing is called in Apple. It's also on the Android version of that, and it's also coming to Spotify. But Spotify put a hold on taking in new podcasts unless they're massive. So it is coming though. It is on the way there. So you can get it pretty much everywhere, which is the audio version only of the Sunday service. Actually, the best place to get it I found so far is actually Podbean, the crowd that I hired to host the podcast. It's actually pretty good. They got a little app and everything. It downloads to your phone. It's really clever, really simple. But subscribe there if you want to get this on Podbean. And if you're listening on Podbean, congratulations. You're one of thousands who are at the moment. It's very weird. I'm absolutely honoured by the amount of people who watch these live streams, and also by the amount of people, the little community that has grown around the Sunday service, and the people who ask questions to be asked on the Sunday service throughout the week. And we've had a good question in this time. Lovely Pat has come by email to ask a very pertinent question. He is changing cars, and his wife wants to change the car at the moment, and looking to change to something with a bit of comfort. Remember that when you're thinking about this now, right? So I'm going to give you a list of cars. I want you to check out what you think, which one you think he should be getting. He even comes with years. Not very clever anyway. 2014 BMW 520 diesel. 2014 Audi A7 3-litre diesel. 2013 Lexus GS 450 HF. 2013 Audi A6 2-litre diesel 190 bhp. Or an Audi A5. Or an other one, right? This is the criteria. So if you're going up with an idea what you want to recommend here. There are 2 kids, a 5 and a 7-year-old. Very important. She does about 80 kilometers a day, but not interested in electric cars. There are times where she wants to go further. She's just into the comfort. She wants a really comfortable car. Likes the show of a badge, likes kind of high performance badge things. Will be holding on to this car for at least 5 years, if not longer, and possibly sourcing in the UK, which is an age-old story I've heard over the last few weeks. A lot of people are sourcing everything in the UK at the moment. It is really affecting car sales here. It is. There's nothing more I can say about that. I'm sorry, dealerships, but it's just happening. The most inquiries that come into me are telling me that they're looking for cars in the UK, and there's not much I can do about that. Anyway, flick on through some more of the comments. Will you be doing a review on the Peugeot 508 SUV? I will, Mike. I did do it already, and that's a problem. I had a camera stolen, and in the camera was an SD card, and the SD card contained the footage of the Peugeot 5008, among other things. They stole a little bag of SD cards, and on the SD cards was like a Honda Civic diesel. There was the 508, a few other things. And they were for backup that afternoon, so it was coming back to a laptop or a backup onto a big terabyte hard drive. But they took a little bag, and in the bag was a little camera, and the camera had SD card in it, and then a little bag of SD cards with it, and one of them was the Peugeot 5008. From what memory serves, the Peugeot 3008 would be my favourite of the two. I wasn't really nonplussed about the 5008, no more than a Grand Am X, which is the Opel version of it. Ambrose McGarry says, hi Bob, lovely weather. It is certainly lovely weather. Beautiful. Kieran D says, how you Bob? Great day for a spin. I will be going out for a spin later on. I have the BMW X2 this weekend. A car I can't make head nor tail of as to what it's for, but I'll try my best to figure it out. It's going to be filmed this evening. I have to film a couple of things this evening. I have to film tomorrow morning as well before I go to Bleeding Monaco to film the cars over there as well. So a bit of a busy time, but I'm going to be filming that this evening. Are the vlogs more of what we can expect from the second channel? It'd be great if it was. Yes, it is, Eric. That's kind of the direction I'm going. A bit of a practice in of the vlog stuff. I am going to start a second channel, which is more of not car related stuff. So things about running, about vlogging, about what happens in daily life. Maybe some thoughts or ideas or suggestions of what you can do. Things about mental health. Things about physical health as well. Diet and exercise and all that sort of stuff will all be contained on a second channel. This channel is mostly cars, and everybody wants cars, and unfortunately there's not a great amount of subscribers. I mean, it's not huge subscribers, but I did just pass 16 million views on this channel, and no one big kind of viral video among that. That's 16 million views just spread across all of the videos, and that's huge compared to how many subscribers I have. Obviously, that's huge. Colin F says, hello Bob, any news on the government proposed reduced tolls for EVs and M50? The government are doing exactly what I'm doing right this very second, which is sitting on their hands. They don't know what to do. The government are not understanding anything at the moment, including WLTP or M50 tolls or electric cars, anything. They don't want to know. They just don't want to know. That's really what it is. Because the October budget, of course, is coming. And there'll be a rush at the last minute as to what they're going to do with the electric cars and how they're going to approach electric car usage in Ireland. It is starting to move forward, although hybrid ones are actually pushing up, or as Toyota call them, self-charging hybrids, which I find funny. I mean, they don't charge themselves. They charge from kinetic energy, but okay, they won't split hairs. They're not plug-in hybrids, what they're talking about. Plug-in hybrids are going to be bigger, hybrid are going to be bigger, and I think diesel will continue to kind of slip as it is right now. It's down about 19.5% sales overall this year, maybe a little bit higher than that, some hidden sales in there, but it is dropping off. So electric cars are on the rise, but not necessarily full electric. They're not really boom up to the top of the list just yet. Tobias Fisher says, when will you new Seed review be out? I was editing it 5 minutes ago, so I'm going to try and get it out today, this afternoon, or tomorrow morning. I'm not too sure. One or the other. Maybe when I'm in the airport tomorrow, I might have a chance to upload it there, but I'm going to be it's just a really busy time. I'll have 3 videos coming out of Monaco as well, so there's a lot of videos on at the moment, and I don't want to mess up the Seed one, because Seed is going to be a fairly important video, a fairly important car for Kia, I suppose, a 5-door hatch at the moment. Ricky Finley says, was at Monaco a few years ago, drove the Ferrari around the Grand Prix circuit. It cost €50, well worth it. It's a great track. You can drive, most of the track is just normal road at this time of the year. There are 2 things about Monaco you must remember. One is they prepare for the Formula 1 all year. 2, the Formula 1 is on in Monaco. They're the 2 things that really matter at Monaco. So when I go, it tends to be not Formula 1 season, so all of the roads are ripped up and they're repairing everything again. And then that stays like that throughout the whole year until maybe a week before the Grand Prix, and then the whole place shuts down and turns into a Grand Prix track. It's a brilliant place. It's a lovely place to go, but good God, don't buy anything there. God, don't buy anything there. The price of stuff. You'd easily spend 30 quid on a couple of coffees outside of a casino there. Go over to Nice. Nice is only down the road. You can't avoid the tolls going into Monaco. That's good. That's a good travel tip there for you. You can be stopped on a border. There's a principality. There are border control guards standing there. They're police or polizii that are standing there on the edge. Italy's right next door, and there's loads of culls, not just a college arena, but there's loads of culls, which are switchback roads going up through mountains and things. Loads of them around Monaco, which is why a lot of car companies have launches in Monaco. Eric says that he'd avoid the A5 out of that list. Comfort and practicality wouldn't be the best. Correctamundo. See, we're all learning here as a community. The A5 is not terribly comfortable in the back for the 5 and 7-year-old. Plus, the A5 has only got 2 doors. Get an audio, very comfortable, reliable. Get an Audi, I think you mean. I'm late. What's your excuse, Mo Kerry? Send in a note tomorrow morning for your parents. That's no good. You can't be late. You have to be here on time. I know, my kidding. I am using OBS Studio, so if you want, you can rewind to the beginning and watch from the very start and play catch up on it, but it means you can't ask your questions live. You will ask a question, but you ask a question, something I said ages ago. Damien Cleary says, you were probably asked this already, but what's the name of that hotel in Portugal and Kia had you in cheered? That's a good question. I forget. You know that? Not terrible. I had it on footage, actually, the name of the front of the place. I'll find out for you. Be alright. We were there recently. So one of the pictures then will come from there, won't it? I'll root through and find out what that was going to be. Where else are we? Eric says that email question to Lexus would be great if the price was right. Hybrid comfort, not as common as the 5 Series or A6. Nice to be different. So it's just thinking as well as the hybrid one kind of sticks in my mind too, funny enough. And I don't normally kind of jump to hybrid when someone is really talking about 3 litre and 2.5 litre diesels and stuff. It's normally like, no, don't talk about hybrids. But actually, I think there might have been there might be a good case for that, because when you're going hybrid, and not going diesel, you might find it's probably the best option for you at the moment. The Tivoli... Oh, I can't even pronounce that. Hang on a second, I'm going to bring it up here on the screen. There you go. Everybody see that? That was the name of the hotel I was staying in. It was called a Tivoli on the outside. It's a huge big thing on the outside. Absolutely spectacularly gorgeous place to stay. Really comfortable beds. The rooms aren't massive. Well, not a massively expensive one, as hotels go, but it's very central. It's quite nice. You're not near the airport, so you don't really hear the airplanes passing over. It's not too far away from things to do around the area. Portimao racetrack is literally up the road from it. We drove for like 30 minutes straight to Portimao. It was a really nice place to hang out. I've driven Portimao a few times. It's a great track. Really love the big, long right-hander that goes down to the main straight. It's a gorgeous place to drive. What's your opinion on buying a Category N write-off? Money to be saved or a nightmare waiting to happen? It's impossible to say, Jimmy, because Category N's or any category write-off for cars is subjective. So somebody sits back and goes, yeah, that's a Category N. Now, a Category N could be something that's had its entire front replaced. All the panels have been replaced. That's a serious Category N. But also a Category N could be just like a very badly broken grille and front bumper, which is easy. But it could also be something that's a little bit more serious. I would suggest, unless you know what you're doing, or your brother, your relative, your uncle, your aunt, or someone you know very well is a mechanic and won't charge you a lot of labour to fix something, I would have no problem buying a Category N write-off, really. I wouldn't, because I'd have a go at it, right? That would definitely happen. And you can save a fortune and get it recategorised then as a back to work car, so to speak. I do have a series coming up fairly soon. I think I'm going to be doing this in conjunction with Skoda. We're going to be doing a series on how-tos, so how to service your car, how to change your brake disc, how to change your shock absorbers, how to do all that sort of... You'd be surprised what I'm doing at the moment. Lots of videos happening in the background. Just waiting to get them all kicked off. So that will happen. But if you're looking at any write-off is not always a write-off. It's an insurance write-off, which means it costs more to fix the car than the car is worth. That's generally an insurance write-off. Most insurance companies just write it off quickly because there's just no point. If a car's worth $5,000 or less and there's any damage done to it, it's probably going to cost thick end of $5,000 to get the thing back on the road, so just write them off. So it can be brilliant or it can be a nightmare, as you say, but it just depends on how good you are at fixing things. Mo Carey asks, diesels are bad? Diesels are bad. The internal combustion engine is bad, not just diesels. So, a ultra modern, brand new diesel that I'm driving today in that BMW outside, or in one of the ones from this year, those cars are incredibly low CO2. The NOx is pretty low on them as well, although not as low as it should be. Petrol cars have much higher CO2. They've always had higher CO2, but much lower NOx and much lower other chemicals like sulfur dioxide and things. Battery cars, the car itself is very clean when driving. There's no CO2, there's no NOx, there's no nothing comes out of a battery car when it's driving along the road. So technically it's cleaner. Where it gets the fuel from is a different story entirely. That's not really our concern as consumers. Our concern is what we emit as consumers. By far and away, the worst CO2 emitters in the entire world is the agricultural industry. It has nothing at all to do with cars. Cars emit so little in comparison to agriculture, and particularly raising of cattle and sheep and pigs. Pigs emit methane. Look at Mad Max 3. There you are, methane. But that's far more damaging to the environment than anything a car could do. A car pales into insignificance compared to CO2 emissions. But technically diesels have just got a bad name. They're not bad. Very hard to replace a diesel, because if you drive 40,000 kilometers a year, 35,000 kilometers a year, and most of it on a motorway, there's nothing out there can replace diesel. Zero. There's nothing even comes close to that. But if you drive like me, very little around the town here, a few short journeys, and once in a while you drive a long journey, you could be driving an electric car at this stage. Brian Cullen says, Bob, good afternoon. You're slumming it back home after your 5-star travels. Until tomorrow, Brian, I am. Then I'm off to Monaco to stay right in the middle of it. So, in case you're new around here, I have been doing international trips for a very long time, since nearly the start of this channel. If you look back across those videos of the first drives of things, I just never did the behind the scenes video of that drive. I never did that thing. But other than that, I did all of the other parts. So I showed you the car review bit about there, but I never really showed you the hotels or anything. But I just thought you might be interested in seeing what it's like on a car launch. Oh, sorry, I have my lemon and ginger tea, and it's lovely. Mike Conley, thanks Bob. Just wondering, what would you recommend as a good point and shoot camera under about €300? I know it's a weird question. It's not really a weird question. The best point and shoot camera you can have right now is your phone. That's 100%. If you have anything from iPhone 6 upwards, not necessarily iPhone 10 is not the best one in the world, major, but the iPhone 6 upwards they're great cameras and that, brilliant video. You get 1080p at 60 frames a second on all of those cameras. There's many different versions of Samsung ones around, or Xiaomi. Is it Xiaomi? Look up a website called gearbest.com. Is it gearbest.com? They sent me things, Gearbest, so that's not, they didn't pay me, they just sent me some stuff. They sent me a dash cam and things. But look up them. They have XY or something like that cameras. They're really top notch, but they're very affordable. Second to that, you could start looking at some of the Sony point and shoot cameras, but they're not going to be €300, unfortunately. If you can find a second-hand Canon G7X, I use that quite regularly. It's my point and shoot camera. I don't know where it is, but it's around here somewhere. It's my general point and shoot camera. The whole vlog that you saw, almost the whole vlog you saw from Portugal yesterday, was filmed on a Canon G7X. Those cameras are around €700, brand new, I think, €700-800. But you can get them a lot cheaper now. You get them used now. Generation 1, Generation 2, you get them for maybe £200, £300. That would be a dedicated camera. The sound is rubbish on them sometimes, but mostly it's pretty good. But generally speaking, actually, in that vlog from Portugal yesterday, the first half is from a G7X, the second half is from my phone. The bit on the cliff top is all from a iPhone 6. So there you go. You'd be surprised what you can use. It's just how you point them and how you use them. It's all that really matters. Mo Carey says, your thoughts on a 2019 BMW X4. Hopefully a petrol will be available for the first time. Never a big fan of the X cars, even from BMW. I don't know why. They just never really took off. I like the X5. X6M was really nice. I drove that over in Austin, in Texas. I enjoyed that car. But the X2, X3 I have in a few weeks' time, which I like the look of now. I used to hate the look of that, but now I like the look of it. But the X4 has never really done it for me. I think there's too much choice. I do like the 4 Series, but I don't like the X4. So, a bit of an odd one. We'll see when it comes out. 2019 is ages away yet. Lexus ES is coming to the UK and they're holding around. It is, yeah. It'll be here. We'll see when they actually get it, whether we like it or not. A Tivoli Carve is from €200 a night. I'll keep doing the lotto. Yeah, it's not. It's on season, off season, depends on your booking. That's a lot cheaper than the one I did in Marseille, which was €500 to €1,500 a night. Think about that. The thing about being a car reviewer is that very few of us get to the point where we get invited on those trips. Those trips are few and far between. Thirdly, car companies do that because they buy the whole hotel out. It's nothing to do with Kia Ireland or anything. It's Kia, global Kia, that goes, just buy the whole hotel out and bring 140 people from all over the world to one location where we can have all the cars. That's how it works. Rather than the cars being broken out and sent out to other countries and then you have to get everybody else to rely on it. It's much easier to bring everybody to one place. And especially somewhere that's close to an airport, it's like a hub airport where everybody can get direct flights, or most people can get direct flights. So there's an element of that goes on as well. So it has to be done in such a way that makes sense. And also, would you continually travel overseas if you were going to a hotel that's worse than your house? If you were going to a hotel, consistently going to a hotel that's like a dive, an airport hotel, a place to put your head down, a stinking room, like places in Munich, where you go into some of the hotel rooms and they're all smoking places and it stinks of cigarette smoke and you're trying to sleep in this place. It's horrible, right? So you're not going to continually do go and get your word out and try and review cars and do that stuff. You just won't. You get sick of it. So there has to be an element of going to something that's actually worth going to, not just a car. And most of them are under massive pressure. So usually it's a red-eye flight in the morning. We fly out, we get out from the airport, we get in a car, we drive for 300 kilometers, we go back to a hotel room. We have a shower, we go downstairs to a press conference. After press conference is dinner, 10 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock at night time, you're going to bed. That can be often the thing. And the next morning, you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, you drive the car to the airport, you get the plane home, and that's your lot. I make it look like in the videos that I've got hours and hours and hours myself. I actually don't. Like this Peugeot one, we seem to be starting tomorrow at 12 o'clock in the airport and not finish tomorrow night until 11 o'clock. We're not landing anywhere to sleep until late at night. They can go on a bit. That lemon and ginger tea, I recommend it to everybody. VW fan says, hi Bob, too many engineers in car companies under pressure to come up with the latest tech in cars. Totally with you on... Damn it, skip forward. Hold on a second. Totally with you on the bring back the knob, especially for heating controls. Getting out of control, especially for heating controls. You're correct. Anything that makes my eyes go from up there to down there several times to look to make sure I'm pressing the right thing should be banned. If it's distracting, if it distracts me, someone who is in maybe 80 cars a year and I'm used to everybody's layout and everybody's touchscreen and it still annoys me, the touchscreen thing, after all this time, I think it should be brought away and gotten rid of. I'm even critical of Skoda taking away the knob for the volume control. So they put in a touchscreen version of volume control, whereas Volkswagen have a little knob on their volume control. But you know, I just think that physical, tactile things that you touch in the car are much easier to use. Ones that aren't physically tactile are much harder to use because you have to look, because your eye doesn't know, or your hand doesn't know what your eyes are doing. Brian Cullen says insurance could be more expensive for the category NC. Yeah, could be. It's probably going to be more expensive, but you know, insurance goes up the whole time. Every time you open your mouth, insurance goes up. Insurance companies don't care, baby. Don't forget you can support this channel from some of the links down below. It's hugely appreciated and keeps the channel free. No one pays me for these car reviews. No car company puts up any money towards these car reviews. I don't get paid for international trips or anything like that. I just get flown out and flown back. It doesn't cost me anything, but I don't get paid for any of it either. So that's on the other end of that. So if you want to support this channel, there is a list of links down below, including PayPal, Patreon, and Bitcoin, BitCurrency stuff. You can do that at any point of the stream. You can also use the what's that monetization button here called? Super Chat, it's called here. You can use that and hit a Super Chat button and support it that way as well. It's the same thing. Any of those methods is always hugely appreciated, but at the very least, hit the subscribe button. That's always the most important part. Monaco, lol. Jeez, Bob, I've been in Monaco 4, 5, 6 times now, I think, at this stage. If you look back across my videos, the Kia Carens was launched there. The Audi A3 was launched there. There was something else launched. I can't remember what it was. I went to some other Russian Marussia launch. I went to there. That was in Monaco as well. It's been there a few times. Not really that special. I don't buy anything in Monaco. You just go to Monaco and you go, wow, everything's so expensive, and then you go home. That's pretty much it. Russ Catterall says, Bob, have you been following Miles on the old Octavia being renovated on Car Throttle? No, I haven't. Probably copying me again, is he, Miles? God. No, no. We're not renovating on. This is a how-to. We're doing a how-to videos coming up. It's coming up soon. We're going to start filming in 3 or 4 weeks or something. Anyway, we're going to film the whole lot in one shot. It'd be very nice. A series of how-to service your car and change your spark plugs and change your oil filters and do all that sort of stuff. Master mechanic stuff. It's all coming. Annie McPhee says that 2016 1.4 TFSI 150 brake horsepower A4 I got is pretty normal on short runs, around 40 to 42 miles per gallon. But on longer runs, I get 62 to 64 miles per gallon, which is more like a diesel figure. So I'm very impressed with it. Yeah, it's a cylinder shutdown thing. It does a really good job at managing its thermal output as well, which is another thing to remember. The hotter the engine, the worse the fuel economy. The cooler the engine, the perfect temperature stuff maintained. It's very good, and Audi has done an incredible job at managing the thermal output from underneath, which gives it better fuel economy and less wind resistance. The hotter a car is, or the hotter an engine is, the worse it runs. Hi Bob, is there any good point in buying a second-hand, say, 2013 diesel car? 2013-2014, especially with the talks of new diesel tax being introduced in August. I don't think there'll be a new diesel tax. It depends if you're UK or Ireland. Just remember, because both countries are now looking at new diesel cars, new diesel taxes. But I'll take it as your Ireland. I don't think there's going to be new diesel tax. The government is going to find it very, very hard to do anything with diesel in this budget because we're all expecting it to happen. We've all kind of predicted different things. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but I don't think it'll be a new diesel tax. It's too big. There's too many diesels on the road. I think the move they're going to make this October will be to level the playing field between the price of petrol and diesel. I think they have to bring down the price of petrol a little bit, up the price of diesel a little bit, 1 or 2 cents, just to kind of equalize a whole lot out. And I think that will actually do the job of. Can you imagine if diesel and petrol was the same price at the pumps, what would you choose to drive every day then, right? Because the tax isn't that much different. It's just the price of the pumps really these days. That's pushing the whole lot out. So I think it'd be okay if you had to buy a 2013, 2014. If you're going to hold on to it for 5 to 7 years, you're not going to have a problem. I think if you're going to hold on to it for a short-term flip, I mean, if you're buying a 2014 or importing it here, registering it here, and then driving around for 3 months and then try and flip it out to someone else, I think you might get stung at that point. Be very careful doing that before the budget comes out. But if you're looking to buy one to keep and drive for yourself, you should be okay. But flipping out a diesel, as a lot of people do, they take it in from the UK, they bring it over here, they register it in Ireland, do the whole lot, hang out for 3 or 4 months, and then they try and flip it and make a profit on it. That could be dangerous in a diesel sense. Your thoughts on the 2019 Volvo S60, the fact that they ditched diesel and it's a good move for the brand? It is and it isn't. Volvo have released a few little tidbits over the last while. One of those is they're not going to be doing any more car launches, in that they're not going to take part in Geneva Motor Show. Well, they might or they might not. They haven't decided. They probably won't go to the Paris Motor Show. They probably won't go to the Frankfurt Motor Show. They might do Geneva because Geneva is Geneva and everybody does Geneva. And Geneva is very small and is actually really active and it's great for meeting people within the industry. I even like Geneva. You can get in and out of Geneva in 1 day. Paris takes 3 days. It's a hard run, but Volvo's moves this year has been very insular, being driven probably by the money behind them. The fact that they've got really good designs. They don't want to have launches in the traditional sense. In other words, inviting people like me to a launch. They want to invite people like you, the ordinary public, to come along to launch. So they can hold them in public places and people come to them. And that's the way they're running at the moment. So them getting rid of that and going all petrol on an S60 is not surprising. They are getting rid of all the diesels, even though the V40s or the XC40s that I've tested belong to Volvo here in Ireland have all been diesel. So diesel's still king here. When they run out of engines, they'll stop doing it. How about the next generation Volvo V40? Can't wait for that one. I'll see what it looks like when it comes out. But Volvo V40s actually was the start of Volvo's new generation of things. And now it looks pretty old-fashioned, weirdly. I actually met a lovely girl on the plane, a stewardess on the plane, a blonde girl. She was really chatting, lovely person. And she came out of the airport at the same time as me and was parked beside me. So we ended up driving down the rubber side. She had a Volvo. What's that curvy Volvo with a curvy back window? It only stayed on for a little bit. Great tasting cars, I know she had. Very good. Gear best camera brand is Xiaomi. Yeah, Xiaomi. That Xiaomi brand, if you're looking for a Google phone, or a, Android phone with decent cameras and decent price and decent pretty much everything, they're pretty good. They get really good reviews. If you ever watch the unboxing therapy, it's called. Lou, hey Lou, I don't know what to do. He's pretty good at reviewing things. Sometimes it's all a bit cheesy crap stuff though. I don't think dropping diesel and going electric hybrid will only hurt Volvo long term. Others will just catch up in time rather than Volvo being unique. It kind of somebody has to kick it off. That's usually what happens in car circles. They've all got ideas about what they should and shouldn't do, but someone has to actually kick the thing off. That's usually what happens. So if Volvo kick it off, then someone will follow that Volvo thing. Also, 45 mpg is good or bad for a Peugeot 5008 SUV, as it's a 1.6 diesel 120 brake horsepower manual. Just read that through again. Also, is 45 mpg good or bad for Peugeot 5008? That's pretty good. It's a big car. It's a big car. 1.6 diesels tend not to rest well on motorways. So when they're driving on big, long, open roads, they tend to rev a little bit higher than something that's 2-litre diesel. So if you want bigger engines, run better on long, big open roads. Smaller engines do better in towns. So, but 45 mpg is pretty good. 45 to 50, depending on how you're driving it. If you drive it like a saint, if you change gears when the gear change thing tells you to change gears, all that sort of stuff, all that kind of thing, it all plays a part. But you gotta watch your acceleration, how you're getting to speed and all that. It's all part of it. Alan Thompson. Hi Bob, Alan from Australia. Man, Alan, great show. I listen online during my commute into northern Victoria in my 2010 Ford Focus. It's nearly midnight here, so off to bed, listen tomorrow. Good night. Good man, Alan. It'll be up tomorrow. I'm going to try and put this one out tomorrow on podcast. So you should be able to listen to it on podcast from tomorrow. If all my plans are brilliant, not all those plans are going to necessarily work out, because tomorrow I have to fit in a car swap, I have to get to the airport, I have to put up a video, and I have to put up an audio podcast, all before 11:30 a.m. because I'll be on a plane from 12 o'clock onwards. And then I won't know where the next Wi-Fi is coming from after that. I don't know what's going to happen next, so we'll see. Tune in next week, folks, when Bob spends a weekend with Richard Branson on the Virgin Islands. I have no problem with that. If Mr. Branson wants to get in touch with my people will sort that out for him. It's no big deal. I love reviewing stuff and going places, but you just like, there's other stuff that's been. Audi recently brought everybody to Chile for the launch of the Audi Q8. Irish journalist on that. The Volvo brought people up to northern Sweden for a launch as well, to drive right up into the Arctic Circle. There was journalists on that. Mercedes launched the X-Class, brought Irish journalists from this country to South Africa, Johannesburg, for a launch of a Mercedes X-Class. I never even seen an article on it. I don't know what they wrote about or where they wrote about. I never saw it. So, like, that's not begrudgery. That's just the way things are. It's just easier for a car company to bring all of the cars to a location and then bring all the journalists to that location than to try and bring the cars to anywhere else. They don't ever, like, they had 140 journalists at the Kia Ceed launch. They didn't have 140 cars. They probably had 20 cars, 20, 25, 30 cars. But everybody doubled up and everybody got their own cars and away they went. And we all get a test, and it's all on roads that they've inspected. It's all on suspension tracks that they have all sorted out for us already. They bring us to race tracks because they've raced the track and they know exactly what we're going to do on it. The cars are all sorted, so they can predict an awful lot of stuff, and then they can listen to us over dinner going, your suspension's not very good, don't like that, the seats are too hard or whatever, and they make changes from there on out. So it happens all the time. Your thoughts on the 2019 Audi A1 that has recently been unveiled? I like what Audi's doing this year, particularly what they're doing on the small end of stuff. I loved every single Audi I've driven this year, particularly the RS3. Haven't driven the RS4 yet. It was damaged when the week I was supposed to have it. I will have it again, I think in August or something. A7's gorgeous. A8 is absolutely outstandingly gorgeous car. Beautiful thing to drive. The A1 has needed updating for the last couple of years, and Audi's kind of ignored it because it's not a big seller for them. The reveal looks pretty good. Their fast cars are usually pretty good. Anyway, so there should be no problem from that. Eric Rochford, good shout out to you, my man. Thank you very much. Has sent some money via PayPal. You're much obliged to you, sir. I get the notifications on my phone about the PayPal part, so thank you very much. It's brilliant. Someone commented somewhere else on another channel. Anyway, come back to that one. The A1 should be nice. Audi has done an exceptional job in their design over the last couple of years, so they're sharpening up the whole time. I'm looking forward to the Q8, which is what's coming out as well. After finishing Chile, done his run there, it's coming over here to Europe. We'll get a drive of it then. Seems good. Mate of mine says it's very good to drive, very nice to drive. Typical Audi in that respect, but should be okay. Craig, Blue Bottle just went zrong. I should give him a credit. He should get a credit at the bottom of the screen there saying Blue Bottle appearance by Blue Bottle. Get it. Anyway, Craig Russell says, hi Bob, I live in the Netherlands. Nearly every second car is a Tesla. You also pay nearly double the tax for a diesel over petrol on the same car. It's unfortunate that it's always Tesla, because Tesla's the only one at the moment with the range. And I don't mean the range of cars. They've only got 3 cars. They've only got 2.5 cars because you can't buy a Model 3 at the moment. But they do have a range in distance that you can travel. And of course, being in the Netherlands, the Dutch don't tend to like paying tax any more than the Irish people do, so they tend to just go after the car that gives them the lowest tax, the lowest everything. But now, on the flip side of that, as many times as I've been to the Netherlands, I've regularly been in taxis in the Netherlands, and all of them are American V8s. The Dutch people do like their camper vans and caravans on the weekend. So if there's a lot of Teslas around, it's a move that's been made somewhere along the way, and it's working for them to see all the Teslas happening. But there's a lot more to Netherlands than just the Tesla. Jet Fuel 12. Have you heard anything about the new BMW 3 Series model due out this or next year? Not really. I don't expect a big shift from the 3 Series current to the next model. Like, it's not going to be all drama, totally different car. BMW just don't do that anymore. BMW make very gradual steps similar to Audi, but their design team isn't up to the same task. They were rattled recently because they lost a couple of members of their design team to other car companies like Hyundai and Kia. So I don't expect a big change from the 3 Series they got now, or from the BMW design ethos, particularly when it comes to BMW 3 Series. But they will have to make improvements. They will have to produce a PHEV version. They will have to produce an electric version. There'll have to be less of an emphasis on diesel. It's just going to happen. So I'd expect some changes in the drivetrain underneath and the chassis system just to cope with that kind of extra weight and batteries and things. But they've already proved they can do it. The current 3 Series has the plug-in version as well. Brendan Harrison says, hi Bob, looking at 3008 and Karoq, which do you think will hold its value better after 3 or 4 years old? Which would be a better car? Holding its value, probably the Skoda is probably going to hold its value out a bit better than the 3008, just because Peugeots don't tend to hold their value, or don't tend to depreciate at the same rate as German cars. And that's not statistically coming from me, that's coming from people who do statistics like that. You can see it generally over time. But at the same time, the Peugeot 3008 is a gorgeous car. Really nice, very popular, has put Peugeot back on the market as a proper sales element. They've sold a lot of those cars this year, so they expect a good return on that over 3 or 4 years. I'd still go to Skoda Karoq though, unfortunately. So I think it's a nicer car to generally. A little bit more boring maybe, but nicer car generally. Mike Conley says, I'm not on the motorway that frequently, but have been recently. Being honest though, I wouldn't think that driving at 140 kilometers an hour while I'm on a motorway would do fuel economy much good. Not really. When you think of 140 kilometers per hour, it's very close to 100 miles an hour. 160 is 100 miles per hour. If you drove any of the older cars at 100 miles per hour, they would just eat fuel. They do. Any car moving fast eats fuel. Smaller engines eat more fuel at higher speeds because the revs are higher, because the pistons are working harder and harder. So that's why big performance cars like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Aston stuff all still kind of have V8, V10, V12s, or a combination or some version of those cars, because they can cope at higher speeds. You all know the difference between a anything V8, V12 and so on. Yes, right, there's difference. Anyway, it doesn't matter, you get it. It's pistons that go up and down in a V shape. Russ Catterall says, you are right, Mike Conley. Here in France the limit is 130, but cruising 120 is quite a bit more economical. It certainly is. And in the rain, it's 110, isn't there, something like that? It changes depending on the weather conditions. But yes, most cars are tuned to go at 120. It used to be years ago the best fuel economy you get from any car was 55 miles per hour, because nearly everywhere had a 55 or 60 miles per hour speed limit. But now it's more like 120 is the kind of best point that a car will kind of cruise at. So if you can get it going at 120, you're still making progress. Look, the difference between 120 to 130 kilometers an hour is 10 kilometers per hour. That's not very much, to be honest with you. Over a period of 500 kilometers, that's really not that much. You might as well just cruise 120 and relax, man, instead of being in a hurry. What would you buy with 20 odd grand? Looking for an executive saloon, hopefully newer than 2014, doing 40,000 kilometers a year. There you go. There's another question for the general population of the Sunday service. Congratulations, you are now a member of it. Mike Conley asks, what would you buy with 20 odd grand? So I don't know if it's odd grand or somewhere between 20 22 grand. Looking for an executive saloon, hopefully newer than 2014. Do you ever think of a Honda Accord? Would that be around the right time? Or is that gone by 2014? I forget now. I'll come back to that question. And Bob, I'm only slagging about those lovely places you're going. I think we all know there's a lot of hard work into what you do, and I'm sure the times and travel is a real chore. Vids are great. Yeah, well, my objective always is to make the vids look good. The video needs to look good, and the video should look kind of effortless. But in actual fact, there's an awful lot of hanging around airports and staring at walls and looking at the back of seats on an airplane, and you know, there's all that crap you have to go through as well every time. And then coming home at like Wednesday, I don't think my flight lands on Wednesday till 11:30 at night or 11:10 at night or something. And then I have to go out and pick up a car and drive home. It's an hour and a bit home, so it's going to be like 1 o'clock in the morning when I get home on Wednesday night after spending 3 days in Monaco. So it's just like it writes off Thursday on you as well. You're kind of screwed in every direction when you go on some of these trips, but worth it because I know what the car is like internationally, I know what the car is like nationally. I give you guys an insight. You can be right up to date with the latest kind of videos, the latest kind of reviews of everything, so it gives you an insight to every sort of thing. Hi Bob, do you live in Dublin or another city in Ireland? I live in Portlaoise. I spend an awful lot of time in Dublin though. So yeah, I'm in Dublin pretty much every week, at least twice a week sometimes. So I do spend a bit of time in Dublin. I actually got a comment the other day from someone who lives in Dublin permanently. He said, you tend to forget that anything exists outside of Dublin when you live in Dublin. You become very city-centric, so you become very insular towards everything being how it works in Dublin. I find out with newsrooms as well. I find out with most of the news, the Independent, the Irish Times, the RTE. If something happens in Dublin, it's headline news. If something happens in Tullamore, it's the country, when actually it's only an hour down the road. Like, it's not that far away. So, and the same for Portlaoise. It's seen as a negative. It's seen as a thing that happens in the countryside. It's not very important. It's a shame how we treat Ireland as Dublin and the rest of Ireland, and then Cork treats Cork as just Cork. There's nothing else exists outside of Cork. So Cork people, sorry, but you tend to treat Cork as just being the only place that matters. A alter ego or something. Any thoughts on Toyota killing off the Avensis in favour of the Camry? I was late arriving, so we talked about this already. I will watch back later. I did not talk about the new Camry. Looks very interesting. It's an old name, but it checks out in that, it checks out in that Star Wars sort of way. I don't know. The Avensis never really replaced the Carina. The Carina E was the last Carina that was out, and then the Avensis replaced that. And the Avensis kind of took off and did well with taxis and stuff, but then it never really got hold of the rest of it. It wasn't big enough. It's not, it didn't kind of make a lot of sense. And then Toyota went, yeah, no, Avensis is not really working for us anymore, so let's just kill it. But they had to replace it with something. So the Camry coming back is a good move, I think, as long as they try and keep it as a Camry, not as an Avensis replacement with a bigger boot or something. It should be okay. I'm looking forward. There's going to have to be a petrol one. There's going to have to be a hybrid one. There's going to have to be an electric one, because they don't do diesels. According to Toyota, don't do diesels no more. So there can't be a diesel version of it. So that'll be good, because they'll probably put in a 2.8 litre or something. Some sort of a Cummins engine will go into that, I'm sure, at some point. That'll be interesting. I tell you what was an interesting car that I saw launched during the week. Suzuki sent me a photograph of it. The new Jimny coming. Dear God, that's a pretty looking car. Lovely little thing. Little box on wheels, just like the old Jimny. Looks really, really nice. I love that now. Looks really good. Look it up. It's on the internet there somewhere. There's a photograph of it. Looks really nice. Little roundy headlights. There are pictures of the new 3 Series interior. It looks very generic, mainstream. Really unimpressed with the direction BMW's gone the past decade. No longer special. Correcto mundo. That is absolutely spot on. I tell you what's making them worse is the 4-wheel drive. The X-Drive thing, as they call it, has taken away the driving dynamic in such a way that they've all forgotten what it was like. There are times where I'd love to just slap an engineer in the face and go, have you ever driven a 3 Series from the 90s? Seriously, have you ever driven an M3 from the noughties? They are rear-wheel drive cars. They are really out there and they're fabulous yokes. But if you take an ordinary 3 Series petrol, a 320i, something around that range in the 90s, and drive it, and you go, God, this feels special. And you get out and get into a 320i from today, and you go, this feels like generic. This feels like homogenized generic stuff. And plus, the X2 interior is exactly the same as every other interior that BMW are doing at the moment. It's exactly the same. It's really hard for BMW to make ground, I understand, but Mercedes came along and kicked their ass recently on looks and interior styling, and I don't know how they dropped the ball so far in that respect. They should have been well up for what was coming next. And the biggest complaint I hear from BMW owners is that it's all a little bit boring these days, particularly in the 4-wheel drive scheme, which is what I have out there. Now I expect an X2 or the X4 or X5 or any 3, or they should be 4-wheel drive because they are 4-wheel drive. But the 3 Series, the 5 Series, the 530e, they should all be rear-wheel drive first. That's their first job. Even Audi do Quattro. When you get a real Quattro, 60% of the power goes to the rear just by default. Brian Cullen says he begs to differ on the optimum speed for fuel economy. Right, here we go. Here's the arguments now. Let's go. Increasing your highway cruising speed from 55 miles per hour, 90 kilometers an hour, to 75 miles per hour, 120 kilometers an hour, can raise fuel consumption as much as 20%. You can improve your gas mileage 10 to 15% by driving at 55 miles per hour rather than 65 miles per hour. Now, I'm assuming you're taking that directly from an American website because it's gas mileage and they're talking about highway cruising speed. This is true, but if I actually want to get somewhere within a reasonable amount of time, 90 kilometers an hour is not going to help me. So 90 kilometers an hour or 120, that's a big difference in speed, right? That's 30 kilometers an hour difference in speed. So over 5,500 kilometers, you're going to be losing like an hour in there somewhere at 90. So at 120, you're going to be gaining time. So if the speed difference isn't that much, so the difference between 120 and 130 kilometers an hour is only 10 kilometers an hour, but you're going to save an awful lot of fuel in that time. But you might save some, but lose an awful lot of time going the other way. And plus, someone will rear end you on the motorway in Ireland doing 90 kilometers an hour. You'll be killed outright, instantly. Mike Conley, yes, I would completely agree. Russ Catterell, I use cruise control when my wife is driving. She doesn't, and it's her car. I work a good bit away from home, and so I'm on the motorway the whole time. I use the cruise control. I use active cruise control. I do it all the time. It serves two fantastic purposes. One is it's incredibly relaxing. I mean, you don't get frustrated because you know the car is just going to continue on at that speed no matter what. It's lovely. If it's active cruise control, it'll even slow down when it sees other cars around you. If you're using ordinary cruise control, well, it doesn't slow down. It'll just rear end whatever's in front of it, but it's still very relaxing. But the second thing it does is stop me speeding. So when you're going along with your right foot on, you just kind of increase your speed a little bit. You're suddenly doing 130, 140, and that's where penalty points, license losing speed start to take place. So cruise control also stops you speeding. The speed economy thing has a lot to do with wind resistance. Apparently, it certainly does. There is a finite point. I can't remember what it is. There's a finite point that a standard car can go before it'll take flight. That's what happens to performance cars. You've probably seen some of the Formula 1 cars where they get disturbed a little bit at a high speed and suddenly they're flipping over. That's them trying to take flight. That's what. That's really what it means. So it is possible at certain speeds for a car to become very flippant on the front and start to lift up on you. You're not wrong, Brian. Definitely not. The Google sources are absolutely correct, but there is a trade-off of how long it's going to take to get somewhere and how long it's going to take to get back versus how much fuel you're going to use and all that sort of stuff. If you're in an electric car, slower is always better. Always. You get more fuel economy. Always. The slower you go. Bob, what is the traditional dish of Ireland? Probably bacon, cabbage and potatoes would be the one we were best known for. Irish stew, Guinness. Guinness stew. Very similar to Nordic, a lot of meat, a lot of carbs we'd use here in Ireland, a lot of that sort of stuff here. Not so many grains or stuff wouldn't be larger. It's becoming large, but as tradition goes, there wouldn't be a lot of grain stuff in it. It'd be mostly meat and potatoes would be the two things we'd be famous for. Personally speaking, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't really eat meat anymore of any kind, or I don't drink milk either. So I wouldn't eat bacon, cabbage, potatoes now if you put it in front of me. Mike Conley says, yes, Brian Cullen, but I feel a bit stupid driving 90 kilometers an hour along the M50. You would. The speed limit is 100 on the M50, although I guarantee the RSA is going to change that speed limit very soon. Be aware, you heard it here first. I bet you the RSA is going to try and create zones on the M50 for slowing you down so they clear off the traffic further on. They will create a 60 kilometer an hour zone, I'm telling you, without a word of a lie. It's on the way. If you all don't stop it, it will happen. Don't oppose it. Call your TD. Make them feckers work. They don't work most of the year. Make them work. Phone them up and tell them you don't want a speed restriction on the M50. Most car figures for optimal MPG are based around 90 km an hour, 56 km an hour cruising. We'll see what happens when WLTP comes out, because that will change that fuel economy figure, because they're all going to be screwed. 56 is optimum. Bob, what do you think about the new 5 Series? Predictable, boring. There's 2 words that described the 5 Series. I like it, but I don't like it more than I like its competition. The king of that segment is the E-Class. I think it's a gorgeous car, beautiful thing to look at. Buy an estate version of the E-Class, you hold on to it forever, it'll go forever as well. You can spec it up to being absolutely pinnacle stuff, but if you even buy the bottom one, so long as you buy the automatic version, you'll be fine. Audi A6 comes in second. There's a new Audi A6 on the way, so that's going to be coming out shortly. But the Audi A6 still hangs in there quite nicely. Audi A6 Avant on an S-Line kit looks absolutely brilliant. And then somewhere after that comes the 5 Series, but they're always trying to shove an X-Drive at you, so I don't like X-Drive. I love these. I get these all the time. Spam. Somebody signed me up to a spam yoke. Everybody has my email address, right? bobflav@thenextgear.com if you ever actually want to email me. Here's a travel agency who wants to promote their tours. Look, I'll tell you what, I'll give you their email address, right? info@carandtravel.net. Here you are. That's spam. I never asked for that. Thanks for sending it to me, but I have no interest whatsoever. I'd rather scrape my eyeballs out with toothpicks than to get involved in trying to sell these guys something about cars and travel. Where were we? But cruising on French motorways at 90 odd kilometers an hour, playing hide and seek with the trucks is dangerous and pulling into overtake, lethal. Cars doing 130 or more. Correctamundo, and if you get out in the Autobahn, you'll be written off. The lads will be flashing headlamps at you. Oh man, murder on the motorway. But it is... Fuel economy is something that people talk about a lot, and yet they're not willing to do a whole lot about it. So, you know, I get a lot of Americans coming on to me going, but my highway figure is like, I get 30 miles to the gallon on highway figures. It's measured differently in the US, but it's down to the speeds we do. Like the US have speeds that are up to 80 miles an hour, 90 miles per hour in places. You think the Autobahn's fast? Try driving a freeway or highway or whatever you call it in America, where they're driving at full speed and a big F-150 truck goes by you at 90 miles an hour. It's crazy. But for Spain investigated looking at their fuel economy by dropping the speed limit to 110 from 120. But when it was pointed out to them that Spain is one of the biggest physical landmass countries in Europe, that it does already take a couple of days to get from the south to the north, and it would now take 3 days if you knock that speed off, that they kind of relented. But it was about lowering their CO2 emissions as well, because you put out less CO2, less NOx at lower speeds. There's no good answer to it. It really does depend on how you drive as a driver. If the way you drive dictates everything to do with fuel economy in a car. Mike Connolly, I know in Spain every time you look up there's a different speed limit. It's actually unreal. It is, yeah, they're all over the place. You're just driving along, it's like bang, there's a 90, there's 50 here. No. France is nearly as bad, not quite as bad. France is really expensive on motorways. The bloody price of stuff in France. Tolls, like I drove from our campsite, which is Eurocamps near Biarritz. We drove to Bilbao in Spain, which is about 2 hours, thereabouts, on a motorway. It was €21. €21 for that short drive, 2 hours. And then we drove back, and it was about 2 hours and 20 minutes, not using the motorways. And it was a much nicer drive in fairness. Lovely. Hi Bob, very close to buying a Tiguan Highline 2-litre TDI 150 brake horsepower with R-Line. Good car, nice, very tidy looking R-Line. And my question is a bit of a scared of what's coming down the line with diesels and taxes, and probably keep it for 4 years. Should I buy or not? You shouldn't really have too much fear of buying it for 4 years. You'd be alright. If you're buying it on PCP, you'll get a guaranteed minimum value in the future anyway, so you'll be sorted at that 3-year point. 4 years, it sounds like you're not on a PCP. You might be buying it for cash. It's a tricky time, Ben. It's very hard to predict exactly where things are going to land. But if you're buying into something that is desirable, like a Tiguan, and particularly a Highline with the R-Line kit, which gives you those lovely alloys, fills the wheels arch very nice. Your colour, the way you keep the car over the 4 years is going to more dictate whether the car sells or not in 4 years' time. Just bear in mind that most of the UK right now is dumping their diesels onto the Irish market, and dumping them in a rapid sense, getting rid of those old CO2s out of it. So there is a kind of a glut coming of diesel. in this country, very high CO2 ones. But if you're buying into a new one, you're buying very low CO2, so you should be fine. I'd say be fine. It won't affect too much, hopefully. Fingers crossed. I'll let you know in 4 years. Well done on being a vegetarian. We should all be. Well, I don't know if we should all be or not, but I have found. So to put that in context, I used to smoke 20 cigarettes a day, every day, up until about 3 years ago. Little over 3 years ago now, right? I just stopped. No crutches, no patches, no nothing. I tried Champex. It gave me massive nightmares. Gave me really freaky out nightmares, like things I still wake up and see in the nighttime. But Champex causes suicidal thoughts as well. So by the way, I'd be very careful now with Champex thing. It's possibly linked. It's called Chamtex or something in the US. It's possibly linked to the number of suicides. But besides that, I tried that. None of that worked. I stopped using the Champex thing after I got these nightmares. But I still give up cigarettes, and I've been off them for 3 years. And then I started to run, so I started to keep fit, and I started looking up dietary stuff. I started looking up, lean fish and chicken and all these kind of things that you get to try and make you healthy. But I realized that if I just stopped red meat, I felt better. So immediately I stopped eating red meat, I felt better. And that started me to stop eating pork, like rashers and sausages and things. And that stopped me eating chicken as well. So I still, from time to time, will have some fish. Not every day, and I still have some dairy products. I have a little bit of cheese here and there once in a while, but I don't drink milk, for instance. But these little changes have improved my skin. If you look, some of my videos are 8 years old. You look at my skin 8 years ago versus my skin now, and you see how clear it all is right now, right? That's also giving up smoking. So giving up smoking and giving up meat and giving up dairy products, or most dairy products, has made a massive difference to the way I feel inside and the way I behave generally, and particularly my skin glows and I don't use any products or nothing on them. So it works really, really well. So if you want to make a simple step, and I challenge anyone to do this, don't eat any meat or any red meat. You can have fish you want, but don't eat any red meat for 7 days. That's all. Just 7 days. Just find anything else you can eat that isn't meat for the next 7 days. And if you want to go to a YouTube channel and check out someone else, two guys that I know and I've met a few times at this stage, the Happy Pair they're up in Greystones. They have a YouTube channel which is a vegan YouTube channel. So they give out all of their recipes for free on their YouTube channel, and they're all vegan. Now, some of that vegan stuff is out there. It's hard to get some of the ingredients they're talking about, like vegan cheese and things. So it's kind of hard to do that. So sometimes you got to make up your own mind and go, well, I'm going to put something in that's not necessarily vegan. So big differences is a vegetarian don't eat meat, but they do drink milk or possibly yogurt, or they do possibly eat fish or cheese or dairy products and things. That's a vegetarian generally. A vegan doesn't eat any of that. So no product that has come in contact with an animal can be used for a vegan. They do sometimes allow honey. Some vegans do, because honey is a kind of a byproduct that would be produced by bees anyway. So sometimes it does. But vegetarians like me, and part-time vegan like me, we will eat pretty much anything. And on these international trips, it's really hard to not be a meat eater, because nearly every course has some sort of meat in it, because the Spanish and the French and stuff, they love their meats. It's weird. Right, back on message. But if you want to become a vegetarian, you're interested, email me, bobflav@nextgear.com. I'll talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. If you're interested in being healthy, how to run, that's why I'm creating a second channel which will have things about running, things about diet and exercise. And there's that beep again. What the hell was that beep? Is that when the kids watch? I think that's a kids watch. I have a Reebok watch here that the kids have. I think that's beeping on the hour. I never heard that beep before in my entire life. Good afternoon, Bob. I'm thinking of either a Range Rover Sport HSE or Mercedes-Benz E-Class Estate. Thanks, Mark. Right. Mark, that is a really good question, because you'd be surprised when people are thinking about that exact same thing. Range Rover Sport HSE is an absolutely phenomenal piece of kit. A phenomenal thing. Absolutely beautiful. You can go anywhere. You can park anywhere. You can turn up at some big event and you can sit in the back. It's a beautiful car. Beautiful thing. But, and there's a big but, Range Rovers are fairly notoriously got some electrical issues, and they've also got some suspension issues over the last while, So you need the budget not just to buy the car, but also to buy the parts and get things fixed. A good way of checking this out is find the car you're actually looking for, the Range Rover Sport you want, or the HSE one you're looking for, and then price a set of tyres first, right? Because that's just where it begins. You're going to be replacing those tyres, the front tyres on a Range Rover, probably once a year, if not maybe once every 1.5 years or so. They do eat front tyres. That's not all you replace. Some of the seals and things around the door. That's great. Now, Mercedes are not necessarily any better. You'll be replacing the rear set of Mercedes-Benz E-Class Estate once every 2 years or so. And when a Mercedes goes wrong, it generally goes catastrophically wrong, and then you'll have to get the thing fixed as well. So it's kind of 6 in 1, but definitely I would suggest drive a Mercedes-Benz E-Class Estate a couple of times. Check it out. Maybe ask the dealer, can you have it for the weekend? Can you have a little spin it for the weekend? Whatever. And just get to know it, get to understand it. It's a cleverer car than you think it is. The Range Rover Sport looks great car to drive. Range Rover Vogue is a nice one. A lot, but the Sport is pretty good. But when they go wrong, and they very often go wrong, it will break your heart along with your bank account balance. So bear it in mind. Andy McAfee says US gallon is 3.5 litres rather than the imperial gallon. So more is used in civilization at 4.4 litres. So their figures are in another realm. Yeah, I know. The US figures always confuse the crap out of me. Why can't we all just homogenize all these numbers? It's just the madness that they do it every time. But yes, Andy, that doesn't affect the 55 miles to the gallon per hour argument. No, it doesn't. Mike Conley, what do you think of the Audi A6 current model? Not the new one coming out. I think you're buying a 3-year-old one. I love it. I love it is the answer to that. Beautiful interior. They do the best interior still. It's still the best kind of connected up system. Looks really well. Try and buy an S-Line Avant if you can, because you get the roof bars. Don't forget the roof bars. You ever want to put a roof rack on? The A6 Saloon hasn't got roof bars. The A6 Avant does. I think they might be optional actually. But a beautiful car, really well put together. There's one here in the town that has, I think it has 21-inch alloys on it, and it looks amazing. It looks like a concept car. Really good car. No problem recommending Audi A6s. There's nothing they do really that wrong. 2-litre diesel now is getting a bit tired, a little bit noisy. It'll be replaced at some point, but it's still a very pleasant car to be in. Hi Bob, don't know if anyone's ever mentioned it yet, but what do you think of the Camry coming back to Europe? It has been mentioned. It's a win-win for us, really. The Avensis was never something that we had on our radar here. Never really liked it. No one ever really liked it in Ireland. It had good sales for a while, but the last generation of it was a bit wishy-washy. So we'll see what the Camry brings us. They better bring more comfortable drive, for God's sake. Vegetarianism is clearly good for you, Bob, and very good for our animals. Meat industry is barbaric. Meat industry is barbaric, but we've been desensitized to it. The barbarism is in the bacon industry when you actually look at how barbaric the whole thing becomes. You notice that you have the National Dairy Council here who don't talk about the health benefits of drinking milk anymore. That your kids need to drink it for good calcium intake. No, they don't. They get no calcium from milk whatsoever. You don't either, by the way. You're an adult. After about the age of 3 or 4, you're actually kind of allergic to milk. Just because you drink it regularly keeps the lactose levels down. And when you have lactose intolerance, by the way, good symptoms of even mild lactose intolerance for you that comes from milk is farting all the time. Weird gurgles in your stomach the whole time. More severe ones are more like diarrhea and things like that. But you'd notice that. But you might not notice how often you fart. And that's probably coming from lactose buildup. But besides that, it's the meat industry is a ferociously barbaric industry, particularly the pigs and sheep to some degree as well. But there's no bacon crowd going, we raise our. I mean, isn't it a sick ad on TV from Aldi saying our burgers are all Irish and they come from these cows? Like, yeah, we're going to kill you later on for a burger, by the way. It's weird. It's just weird. So anyway, that's one of the reasons I'm vegetarian. But it's more for my own personal health. I don't begrudge anyone a big steak if they want to have a big steak. It looks lovely, and I'm sure it tastes lovely. I forget now. It's just been so long since I had a steak. Hi Bob, thanks for sharing the health tips. I can attest to your apple cider vinegar consumption. Yes, you see, I do that as well. So a really good tip for you is get a glass of water in the morning. This is really good for your health, honest to God. Glass of water in the morning. and get apple cider vinegar with the mother. It must say on the bottom of it, with the mother. It's an active thing that's inside it. Any other apple cider vinegar is distilled one. It's not for drinking that way, but it's not expensive. You can buy this stuff in Tesco's. They've got 2 different kinds of brands there. It's about $2.50 or something for a bottle, and it's going to last you a couple of months. Don't worry about it. It's a long-term investment. You put 2 capfuls into a full glass of water and drink that every day. It's so good for you. It cleans out everything. It gets you mobile, gets you moving. It's very good. So apple cider vinegar for another little health tip, and it keeps you acidic, which is also good for your body. The meat industry also helping destroy the planet. Yes, they are. The CO2 level emissions that come out because of cows and sheep and pigs and everybody else is astronomical compared to cars. The land clearance. So Brazil, not just Brazil, the whole of South America, the majority of Southeast Asia is being cleared of trees and wildlife and orangutans and everything because of the agricultural industry, because they want to grow things, because they want to farm cattle. We've got to stop. We can't continue clearing whole massive country-sized spaces just to feed some cows. We need to stop doing that. There's plenty of food for everybody on the planet. We're just growing the wrong kind. That's really it. I keep a vegetable patch in the backyard. I've done that for the last few years. So we eat our own carrots here. Although I do buy carrots, so I don't have enough. I couldn't make enough in my garden to feed the family the amount of veg we eat now. But we grow a little bit of tomatoes, a few raspberries and blackberries and things. It's not always, but we try to eat our own stuff too. Bob, do you prefer to buy or rent a house? Depends on the situation. In Ireland, generally speaking, we try to buy houses and we rent cars. Germany tends to be the other way around. I tend to buy the car and rent a house. Renting here in Ireland is quite difficult at the moment. There is a shortage of houses to rent, particularly in around city areas. There's also a shortage, in general speaking, of money. People who have houses for rent are charging €1,500 or €2,000 a month, whereas a mortgage will probably set you back, if you get a good one and a reasonable size one, probably about €1,000 a month. So it's actually cheaper to some degree to get, but people can't get the mortgage to buy the bloody house. But we're in another whole other boom here. But generally speaking, Irish people tend to buy houses and rent cars, so they tend to finance cars. Mike Conley says, what do you think of the Opel Zafira Tour? I had one on holidays in Spain about 10 days ago. Quite good, but very boring. Do you think they'll replace with an SUV soon? It's a shame that these all 7-seaters, which are actually really good at hauling 7 people around the place, are going to be replaced by some sort of 7-seat SUV option, which will only probably carry 5 people in comfort and plus one other tiny little baby person in a tiny back seat. That's kind of what they do. They don't make as much sense anymore. But people don't want Zafira or Ford Galaxy or anything. But Zafira actually was the one that started the whole off with the Flex 7 seating and all that folding up seats. Zafira started that. Everybody else just copied it. Espace actually started the 7-seat option, but the generation 1 of that, your head was the crumple zone in the back seat. So they just added 2 seats to the back of a car. But Zafira wasn't too bad of a car. It's all right. If you could pick one up second hand, they're fairly indestructible. They're well made, in that respect. So they're pretty indestructible cars. And Opel used to make really good engines back then too, so there should be no problem with them. Great, thanks for your experience and honest view as always. Top man, thanks, Mark. No problem, Mark. Milk is meant for calves. Milk is meant for babies as well. So all mothers on the planet that are mammals make milk, and they provide that milk directly to the baby to give them a very tailored nutritional profile that suits the fattening of the baby. And I know that sounds like a really mouthful of things I just put there to you, but human mothers, baby mothers, or cow mothers, gorilla mothers, any mother, right, has a child, and the nutritional profile of the milk that the mother produces is tailor-made for that child. It can be given to any child, but it's tailor-made for that child. When you have cows that are producing calves, those cows are being pumped full of antibiotics and being pumped full of chemicals to make them fat and that stuff is crossing the barrier and getting into the milk of the next cow, and that cow is is being fattened up by the mother's milk, but in an artificial way. And plus that's crossing the barrier to us. So when we eat the meat, we're eating all that antibiotic crap that comes with it. So It's a horrible situation to be in, and the more you realise that the milk we're drinking is just bad for you. It's just bad for you. It's basically just fat and lactose. That's really all that's in it. You can say all you want about calcium, but you actually get calcium from all sorts of sources, and none of it includes milk. Your body produces calcium from damage as well, you know. So if you go running and you damage your bones while you're running, through rest your body will make more calcium and replace the bones. So running actually makes you run further longer. But anyway, milk is not designed for anything over about 3 years old. So once you get to about 3 years old, that should be round about there, the end of your interest in milk. But because we have a national dairy council, they tend to be in their own interest to get milk out there the whole time. So milk is still one of the big sellers in Ireland. But I don't take it. If you're looking for a milk alternative, the best alternative I can actually find right now is oat milk. You'll find it in Lidl sometimes, not there every time. It's about $1.50 a carton. About the same price as milk. You'll find it definitely in Tesco's. There's 2 brands in Tesco's. One is cheaper than the other. There's a Swedish brand which is in a brown one called Oat, and the other one's called Dreamy Milk or something, oat milk as well. Both made from oat, have absolutely nothing in them other than oats, really. Oats and water, that's kind of it that all makes it up. You can make your own oat milk if you want to make it as well. It's just as easy. But so you can get it anywhere you want. But milk is is bad for you. That's basically all it's for. It's bad for you. Well said, Bob Meat. Your moral compass is always spot on. Yeah, well, was spot on late. I'm late to the party of vegetarianism and veganism and stuff. But now that I see the light, I don't see a way that I would go back to eating meat at this stage. I don't even the smell of it now. Cooking is a bit weird as well, you know. Anyway, Bob, do you drink tap water or bottled water? I drink tap water here a lot of the time in Portlaoise. The water's hard, but hard water is lime, and lime is just mineral. It's a mineral that comes out of the ground. So, you know, get it that way. But you can drink bottled water as well. I have a bottle of water. Where's that from? That Aldi or Lidl? I can't remember which one that is. It's Aldi. It's on the back of it. Coomera Irish still water. So I have that as well. That's really cheap. You can buy that really cheap in the shop here. Bob, have you ever reviewed a police car? No, I've never reviewed a police car. Bob, do you like full Irish English breakfast? Neither, because I don't eat meat. If I'm having breakfast now, I tend to. Sometimes I like an omelette. Now, some vegetarians eat eggs and some don't, right? But I do like an egg, even though I know it's probably really bad for you. I know it is. I know the vegans out there be going, oh my God, he eats eggs. It's so bad. But actually, I kind of like an egg. I love an omelette. I love scrambled eggs and things. I've always liked them. And they are, to some degrees, heart healthy stuff. Is a little bit high cholesterol, but I tend to stay away from things that have cholesterol in them or high cholesterol in them a lot. The only exception to that I have would be coconut milk. That's very, very high saturated fats, which is bad for your cholesterol. So you should stay away from that. But the benefits of coconut milk far outweigh the drawbacks of coconut milk. But as for meat, I still love Irish sausages on the whole face of the earth. Ireland makes the best sausages in the whole wide world. Nothing compares to an Irish sausage. So an Irish full breakfast would be one I would pick if you asked me to pick one or the other. But why are there 2 taps, not cold water in Ireland? It's so frustrating. That's old fashioned. We used to have 2 taps everywhere. Same in England, in fairness. You have cold and hot taps separate. Most people have changed over to mixer taps now, in their house at least, have changed over to mixer taps where you just lift one handle and twist left and right to get hot or cold. I'm not too sure why we ever went on that route. It must have been something to do with Ideal Standard. The people who made sinks. So I used to work in the bathroom industry many years ago. So I used to do Duravit and Dornbrecht and Rocca and Grohe taps and all that stuff. And the one that was the Irish one was like Ideal Standard was the Irish ones, or you know, Armitage Shanks was another one that was an Irish one. And most of them made sinks with 2 holes in them. And so what do you do? Put on 2 taps. So that's kind of what it was. So some of that came from the actual sink itself. But mixer taps are probably around 20-25 years quite regularly. You could go back further. They did exist before that, but not in great numbers, mostly in America. Bob, is the new Camry a hybrid or petrol or both? I would say they're going to bring out all of them. I'd say they're bringing out a plug-in hybrid, and probably a high-performance petrol, because they used to have high-performance petrol. Once upon a time, the Camrys of Ireland were Garda cars. Does anyone remember that? That's not that long ago. It's probably in the late 70s, early 80s. The police used to go around in Toyota Camrys, really fast cars. I think they were 3.8-litre V8s or V10s or something. They were quite a lump of a car to drive. Their questions are electric. Polish sausage is also delicious. I can't do something about no. No, there's something kind of the texture is, there's no texture to it. They're like hot dogs or something. And there's the German sausages as well, which are rotten. God, those white things like dry dog poo that they have for breakfast. What are they on? Wow. I remember going to an airport one time on an international launch. We were coming back through the airport really early, and the car company had closed off a little section of the airport for us to have breakfast, and all they had was these white little tiny white sausages, which are I don't know what you call knockwurst or something they're called, but they're white, and they just look like, God, would somebody fry that for a minute, just turn it tan. They look like a raw sausage. It looks like a dry dog poo. And then they had these other ones like chorizo, or chorizo, do you call it, which is kind of a spice sausage. There's a lot of spice things in them anyway. But I don't really like any of those sausages. Just Irish sausages. Just a basic old Irish sausage is very good. Aldi actually do a really good sausage. See, I used to be a meat eater up until a couple of years ago, so I know that Aldi do really good top class 8 sausages, and they're very tasty. In your experience of all of your travels, what country typically has the worst drivers and why? Ireland, because they don't bother driving. They just get on. The phone is up there, and they're going, oh yeah, sure, drive, yeah. And they're just cruising on the road, and they don't one hand on the steering wheel, sit sideways in a seat like this crap. The women, I see women, and I'm not being sexist here, but women sitting so close to the steering wheel that their face is the airbag at that stage, right? They're going to be in the crumple zone. They're so close to the steering wheel. This country, Ireland, has some of the worst drivers in the world, but it comes slightly second, just ever so slightly second, to Italy, who have the worst drivers in the world. But Ireland has the worst amount of mistakes. Italy just has, everybody in Italy thinks they're a Formula 1 driver. That's why everybody in Italy drives like lunatics. Ireland just has no cop on whatsoever when it comes to driving, and some of the guys here are absolutely dreadful. And that the best answer I can give you. That's as good as it gets. Ireland is absolutely lethal to driving if you've never driven it before. Stay on the motorway. Don't get off. You're safer. Not electric, Bob. Eclectic. All right. Mixed, wide ranging from the kind of your friend Paul. Yeah, Eclectic is welcome here as much as we possibly can. Paul has been here before. I've seen that name a good few times. CD Models. It's about time you turn up. Where were you? America has the worst drivers. They just get away with it because they're big roads. No, they get away with it because they're armed. They'll shoot you if you try and stop them and tell them that they're bad drivers. That's what happens. That's welcome to America. This is America. I hope you've all seen that video, which is very good. Paul, I'm not drunk yet because Poland-Colombia match is about 20 minutes. Oh, is that on as well? Jeez, all the matches are on. Apparently Italy, Greece, especially Thailand are awful drivers. You see, you expect it in Thailand and you expect it in Vietnam and places like that, where it's all a bit, where the laws are a bit eclectic, in a good word. Greece, I found Greece drivers to be okay, usually, for the most part. Italy is just suicide for the most part. Honest to God, suicide in Italy. Even on a motorway. Look, if there's a space big enough, it doesn't necessarily have to be completely big enough. If it's nearly big enough to fit a car in on a motorway, that's where Italians do. Just turn. I'm going to drive through here, whether you like it or not. That's an Italian way of driving. I like the French. French are pretty good drivers, very clued in, very clever with roundabouts and things that just aim for the car, knowing that the space will be there when they get there. That's the way French people drive. It's quite nice that way. You get used to it very quickly. I've driven pretty much nearly every country in Europe at this stage, at some point or another. And every time I come home, I am genuinely shocked by the standard of professionalism on the road in this country, and how drivers approach the business of driving, and how they approach how to get from A to B is just like they just jump in and drive off, and they've no seatbelt on, they're on the wrong side of the road, they have a phone in their hand. It just don't seem to get it, and it's multiple people out there. It's not just a few. This is the vast majority.
And then when you actually see a driver who knows what they're doing, it's such a shock. How did that happen? How did you learn to know what to do? We're really good at when it comes to road deaths. We have improved dramatically over recent years. I tend to disagree there. I think there's a lot of horse manure that comes out from the RSA as they decide what way they're going to measure what is a road death and what isn't, because they used to include cyclists and pedestrians and cars in road deaths. Cars have gotten massively safer, and as we all drive very young cars these days, pedestrian safety is very high up on new modern cars. Passenger safety is very high up on new modern cars. So if we're not getting the deaths, we are getting the long-term paralysis that comes with having a car accident in this country, or a car collision. I shouldn't say accident. Accidents suggest somebody isn't responsible. Of course they're responsible. But when it comes to car road deaths in this country, or deaths on our roads in general, we have consistently every single year, except for this year, have increased in road deaths. Every single year it has gone up, and the RSA are useless. Sorry, they're useless in that respect. They are a advertising agency. They buy ads. They bought an ad in Cara magazine and in Dublin Airport saying drive on the right, like they needed to be told. But yeah, like that's like a sign in a magazine on Aer Lingus is going to help people decide what way to drive. Anyway, but we have only improved our road deaths this year. Really, it's gone down a little bit, but it's gone down this year because there's less people driving cars in this country, because driving cars are getting very expensive. Less people are on the road, and that's why things are going down. Americans are actually really good drivers when they pay attention. That's true. When they're not shooting people, shooting each other, shooting themselves, shooting small children, or shooting choirs. They're pretty good at driving, yeah. Generally speaking, I wish Americans would just do something do something. You don't actually have to come up with a big solution to their gun crisis, but seriously, they need to do something, anything, whatever that may be. They need to try something and see how it pans out. Because right now, what happens is kids get shot. Everybody outrage in Europe, outrage in America, outrage in the news. Oh man, gun violence is high. More people have been killed. And it all settles down, and no one does anything. Nothing happened. Nothing. They are just status quo. It continues just like it was yesterday. And no one seems to make a blind bit of difference to it. I don't understand why at least the Americans won't try something. The only thing I saw the other day was there's about 1 billion guns in the world. And America owns nearly half of those. American population owns nearly half of those. So what happens is you have a gun crime, you have an outrage, and people buy more guns. That's the solution in America, is to buy more guns than they had yesterday. And it seems a very strange aspect. I was in the army. I know how to use a gun. I know well how to use automatic rifles, pistols, shotguns. I used them all. Why would you need one though? On a day-to-day basis in the whole world, walking around, I've never been, in all over Europe, I have never seen anyone shot up close. Never in the street. And I know we've had our share of problems here in Europe as well. I still haven't seen it. It still doesn't make me want a gun any more than I had yesterday. I don't think I've ever seen an American driver not on the phone when driving. That comes from movies, to be honest with you. Some states in America still allow you to be on the phone while driving. But often if you look back across a lot of TV shows, a lot of American movies, a lot of American TV shows, since mobile phones have come around, you'll find that they even in the TV show, they're driving on the road, they say, yeah, look at Heat. I watched Heat the other night. They talk to each other on the phone all the time, in the car, with the phone against their head. So we learn, whether you like it or not, TV and movies have an influence over how we relate to one another, and that's what goes on there too. Bob, do you recommend some old school Irish pubs in Cork? I don't really know Cork as well as I should. Cork is quite a distance from everything else. I love it. I've been there a few times. I was there a few months back with Ford. I had a gig there and I'd done a whole run across city centre of Cork. It was gorgeous. But I don't know it as well as I should do. Cork has always been a very insular place in Ireland, and going down there has always been an adventure in itself. But Cork people like Cork things, and they talk about Cork stuff, and they read Cork information, and they listen to the local radio. But they definitely go down to there's a farmer's market, or what's it called, the city market or something. It's a lovely place to go. It's a really nice day out. City centre is a lovely pedestrianised kind of area as well too. It's a really nice place, but just it's a funny it's a funny trip down. It's quite a hike from where I am, and I'm half across the country. It's still like 2.5, nearly 3 hours from here. CD Model says, for hunting big game, lol, because the deer probably have rocket launchers to fire back. Yeah, well, that's what wouldn't surprise me at this stage, was the deer suddenly picked up some guns that are shooting back at them. I saw there's some TV shows and things that really don't help out there. How many, people are armed to the teeth, and people like Charlton Heston from My Cold Dead Hand, all these things. It's my constitutional right to bear arms and stuff. Yeah, that was written during the bleeding revolution, like over 100 years ago. Just need to update this stuff. You can't just pull a gun and shoot someone dead in the street when you don't even know what's in the background. You gotta watch your background. You gotta pick your targets. I seen a retaliation thing. A guy pulled a gun, was holding up someone else. Someone else pulled a gun and shot the guy who was holding someone else up. And in doing so, the bullet passed through him and hit a child behind. And then they kept shooting. So they shot until he was on the ground. 4 of the rounds hit other people who had nothing at all to do with what was going on. Stupid, like. I don't understand why Americans just won't do something about the gun industry in America and its leverage and its ability to be able to pay the politicians to keep that going. It's a weird thing. They literally give the politician thousands of dollars to vote a certain way, and they do. They vote a certain way. It's weird. Oh boy, you're right about guns. Americans are nuts. Not all Americans. There's many Americans that I've met over the years who are very ordinary, nice, individual people. And a lot of them come to Ireland for holidays where they're not allowed to carry a gun. Whether they've got a carry license or not, it makes no difference here. Open carry doesn't exist. Carrying a gun, concealed weapon here, you get shot here for carrying a gun. You put a fake gun in the street here and the guards here will call the armed response team and shoot you. That's how it works here. Simple as that. And no one else is going to shoot you. Everyone else just run away. That's what happens here. We run away from the fight. We're neutral. We don't get involved, man. The English market. You're dead right. No, I live in Portlaoise, middle of the country. The English market is the name of that place in Cork. I have to say, as much as it's nice, it's kind of expensive though. When you go down there and you suddenly realise it does actually cost a fair bit of money to go into the English market. It's a bit like there's a market in Biarritz which is very similar to the English market. It's been around a bit longer, mind you, and that was really nice and it was very affordable. Like things were actually a bit cheaper in the market in Biarritz than they are in the English market. So than they are even in the shops. It was €1 for a baguette. It was a euro for tasters of things. It was lovely. Here in Michigan, we have to hunt deer. If we don't, their population explodes and most die off of starvation. We do this in Ireland as well. We employ people to go and cull deer here in Ireland, particularly in a place like Stephen's Green where there's millions of them. Stinking horses as well. And there's some of them up around Slee Bloom here in Laois. But there's people employed to do it, and that's how it works here. We don't just let people wander off into the forest and randomly shoot each other. Just doesn't happen. And anyway, look, they're hunters. They're guys who are probably trained. They know what they're doing. They're wearing the correct safety gear. They're carrying the weapons correctly. They have the ammunition stored in a way that's relatively safe. A lot of these guys are pretty professional about their hunting and they take it very seriously. The people I'm talking about are the people who are wandering around the streets of Los Angeles with a gun under their jacket that they've never had to pull in their entire life. They've never shot another human being. And they're confronted with a situation where another human being has a gun and they can shoot them, and they're allowed to take the gun out, and everybody applauds them for shooting the other guy. Sorry, but that's not to be applauded. You should be looking back at yourself going, why am I applauding him? It's great to stand up for yourself, I get it. Best thing to do is take cover and get out of the way of the guns. Bob, since the high school 1979, there were over 600 deaths on the road in Ireland, and they've come down steadily since then to 158 last year. Surely hard to argue with that. 1979 was a very, very bad year. That's why it's continually rolled out the whole time. Also, back in the late 70s, most of the cars were Mark 1 escorts, where you would die if you hit a curb because your knees were in the crumple zone. Most of these cars, most deaths on the road back then were down to enforcement, down to speed, drunk driving. They all played a massive role. All of that stuff has changed, and if you start taking out the fact that we don't drink drive really as much anymore, it still goes on but not as much as it used to be. We all drive insanely safe cars, really tested to the limit cars. Pedestrians now have footpaths and things that are off the road. They're not so prevalent under our wheels the whole time. Once you take out all of that sort of stuff, 158 deaths is still too high by a country mile. It's not coming down in any meaningful way. We're not educating our population properly anymore. We're not giving them the correct tools. We're just penalising them. We're just making it harder to get a license. We're making it more difficult and more testing time and more time, less time being coached by those around you, and more time being taught by people you have to pay to teach you to do stuff. It's all kind of gone the wrong way. The message isn't being reinforced properly by the industry, and realistically we're creating learner drivers who won't be drivers at all in the future. They won't know how to handle things. But it is a dramatic fall. I get it, from 600 people from 1979, but you could look at any statistic from 1979, look at cancer rates, look at cancer detection, look at medical malpractice, look at all these things that have gone up or down or up or down. You can just take a random year in the past and go, yeah, well, it's gone down since then. Well, that's because of future technology, or technology's moved on. It's easily explainable, but it'd be lovely to see more of an active role from the RSA on their budgets and how they use it to a lot to teach young drivers how to drive, and not just penalise them by, slow down boys in your video, penalising young boys as being the problem on the road of killing people. Road deaths are a third of what they were 20 years ago. Got to be pleased about that. A country of 4 million or more. Of course I'm pleased. I'm always pleased when people survive a crash. But the reason they're surviving a crash is not because the RSA's ads. That's not why they're surviving crashes. That's not why the road deaths are going down. The road deaths are going down because statistically we're driving safer cars and we're walking in safer areas and we're all wearing yellow jackets, and the cyclists on the road become more aware. It has very little to do with the budget that we provide to the RSA for their job. So there you go. Just an opinion. Videos on YouTube of a certain state's open carry laws, where owners of assault rifles can carry them loaded and made ready in town and shops of people. People doing it just for attention because America. You're absolutely right, Andy. I've seen these videos. I saw a young man who, on purpose, as a YouTuber, went out to try and find confrontation from a police officer. He carried an Armalite, probably an AR-15, something like that. It's one of those kind of a rifle, right? A rifle type yoke. He had it on a harness at the front that you would only really see someone like a Navy SEAL carry or something. One of those kind of ones where it hangs in front of you the whole time. Ammunition strapped up here like commando style. And off he went into the streets of whatever part of America it was, until inevitably what was going to happen happened, which was a police car pulled up saying that he had a complaint from someone in the town that there was a guy walking around with a rifle on his chest. And lo and behold, there was a guy with a rifle on his chest. And when he stopped and asked about his ID, the cop was so polite. I don't know why he just didn't shoot the young lad and have done with it. But he was very, very polite. He asked his license, he asked his open carry license, and your man was continually going, are you detaining me? Are you doing this? And I was thinking, God, this is just ridiculous. These people are here to protect you and try and keep the population safe. Just do what he asked you. That's all you got to do. And then the proliferation of these videos came out, and of course the gun laws are under scrutiny the whole time, and nobody wants to change them. And it's an unfortunate situation for America to be in. Living in fear is never a nice way to live. So you live in fear of being shot through your window some night. That's not a nice way to live. Would really need to upgrade the air suspension with my 21-inch wheels. In my opinion, S-Line looks like a business, but trade-off between comfort and looks. Was that a question from earlier on or something? Anyway, Bob, why is 80 and 90 almost every US IT corporation opened your headquarters in Ireland? Because we have an insanely low tax system, corporation tax system. So if you incorporate your business in Ireland, you pay a 15% corporation tax or something like that, versus 50% or something in the rest of Europe. We're a tax haven. We are, definitely. They don't want to admit, they don't want to say that, but I'm telling you that. We are a tax haven. 100% we're a tax haven, and have been for generations. Most of the companies that are opened here don't really have any employees. They just have an office here. So they have an office in Dublin, maybe one employee, shared out among a number of businesses. Other businesses like Google or Facebook actually do employ quite a number of people here. Apple factory in Cork employs quite a number of people here as well. Those numbers are in decline as we come under scrutiny for our tax purposes, and also go into decline as other non-EU, non-US countries realised that they could also be a tax haven, and so a lot of money's shoved through Malta, Jersey, Guernsey, the Bahamas. Lots of money goes there too. So we're not alone, but we do manage to hold on to. We have an English-speaking population, highly educated, and they're our draw at the moment. But they are being driven out of the country as well. So that's going to change too. So we are just kind of bedding down for the next few years. But you will find a drop off in these high-tech, wanted business points as people realise that getting paid 100 grand in Ireland, you could pay a guy in Bangladesh 10 grand and he'll do the same job. That's it happened already, so it'll probably happen again. Bob, years ago they nearly gave driving license out in lucky bags. They did give it out in lucky bags. George Hook admitted to me 100% that he was handed a license. He never took a test. He never had a lesson. Not a single one. He got a learner license, and he got a license from the tax office thereafter, straight away, without having to take any test whatsoever. So that's currently today. He has never had a driving lesson in his lifetime. Anyway, now it's much more strict with a lot more training, and surely there has to be a very positive impact. Not really. It hasn't had a positive impact in any other direction other than it's very expensive to get a driver's license in Ireland now. They are more trained, but we still don't have a motorway training. We still don't drive at night time. We still have the ability to cancel a test or cancel a lesson at any point in inclement weather. So if it starts to rain, or it's too dark, or it's too bright, or there's a little flurry of snow, then that cancels the lesson. How people have to drive every day, all day. How do they learn? How are you supposed to learn how to do it? We still don't take a proper responsibility for driver training. When they're given a full license, you're on your own. Go for it. Now off you. That's it. Now you can go wherever you want on earth, and no one can question you. Why isn't there a mandatory driver's license refresh at the 10-year mark? Why is it that when my license runs out at 10 years, which I think is 3 years away or something, I just get a new license? No one questions me whatsoever on whether I can drive any better, whether any of the rules have changed, any of the regulations have changed, has the speed limits changed, do we change how we drive and operate in the road? No one questions that. Here's your license, off you go, you should know what you're doing. Yeah, fine. No advanced driving course, for instance. Nobody has to take any advanced driving course. You just drive on there and enjoy yourself. Sure, no one cares. So some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. We just don't do enough to make things move forward quickly enough. Have you noticed that the last 15 odd years the American police force have gone from wearing essentially blue suit and a belt with a badge and a bat and a revolver to a full urban military? That's because the military spend is so big in the US that they don't know what to do with all of the military stuff that's left over hanging around in fields, so they just give it to the cops. No joke. Cops drive tanks, and they drive cars as well, but have you seen the tanks that the cops have in America? What do they need tanks for? What do they think is going to happen that requires them to have a tank? A real, proper, honest-to-God tank. Other than invasion from outside forces, there's no police force in the world needs a tank. Anyway, even during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, they didn't drive tanks, they drove Land Rovers. Just saying. Luxembourg and Cyprus are other popular tax haven countries in the EU. Luxembourg particularly, yeah, I was in Luxembourg. I spent a night in Luxembourg, actually, funny enough. Yes, it is a tax haven. There's many tax havens across the world. We are definitely one of them. We're just specialists in having a very highly educated English-speaking country, and has the availability of having cheap corporation tax. And we do sweetheart deals for certain companies to come to the country, although that's not admitted. Allegedly, we do sweetheart deals, but of course we do sweetheart deals allegedly most of the time, some of the time. But for the most part, most corporations are here in this country because they pay very little tax on all of their earnings. No matter where those earnings were earned, they pay the tax here, and it's very low. So it's been a bone of contention for a number of years. It's not going to change. It'll continue to be in a bone of contention as begrudgery builds up across the world. All you got to do across the world, if you want to learn what we did and you want to stop the begrudgery, change your corporation tax to match ours perfectly. Do exactly what we did, and instantaneously you'll find that all of those companies will suddenly end up in your country. That's the answer. We don't have to change. You have to change. We're not wrong. You're wrong. That's how it works. It is interesting as an American to hear people's view on guns. The media here is anti-gun and make sure it's always seen. In Michigan, we only average 2 road rage shootings per year. Do you know how many road rage shootings we have here in Ireland? None. I've never heard of one. Never. I used to heard plenty of road rage for sure. Lads get out of the car and start gesticulating at one another and something like that. Might even end up in a punch-up. But that's usually as far as it goes. Generally speaking, all that happens when you have a gun, someone else gets a bigger gun. And when they get a bigger gun, you get a bigger gun. And that's what happens. That's what's happened here in Ireland to some degree as well. We do have an armed response unit now. Proper one came in a few years ago where they have weapons and they have certain kinds of weapons in the boot of cars and things, and they can turn up the stuff. So we do have them, but it's just not quite the same level at all. Istad says, RE accidents after road design, driver training is the single most important factor statistically speaking. Correct, absolutely correct. Driver training and the response you have to certain environmental factors is 100% the most important part of the way you behave on the road and your safety on the road. I have taken multiple courses on driver education, safety, dynamic driving, how a car responds with no brakes, with no ABS, how a car responds with ABS, in the wet, in the dry, on a racetrack, multiple times. And that has all come from the car industry themselves teaching me how to drive it. It changed my driver behaviour. I did it here in Ireland on Mondello. On their racetrack, I've done driver training course, single seat, multi-seat cars, the Mazda race. I've done a Rally School Ireland up in near Northern Ireland, Monaghan. They did a superb job at teaching you car control, grip control, and different kinds of cars back to back in an M3 and then suddenly in a Mark 1 Escort. It really changes your dynamic way of dynamically driving on the road. And if you do it and you follow it through, I guarantee you will not only be a safer driver, but actually a faster driver. You will get through traffic and see things you just don't know what's happening around you. Definitely worth investing your time in doing your different courses and stuff. Contact Rally School Ireland, contact Mondello. They both do driver training courses, race driver training courses, and how to driving on a normal road as well. Training is important. A far better system now. Yes, it is. I'm not saying training is not important. Training is very important. But don't just train someone up and then just let them off. You got to continue. The training should be consistent all the way through their driving career. Driving conditions change, roads change, lines change, rules change, new regulations come out, cars get better, faster, bigger. I mean, your average standard Volkswagen Up can do basically 200 kilometers an hour. It's a tiny, micro-sized car with 3 doors, and you'll get up around 200, 210 kilometers an hour. Fairly handy with a 1-litre engine. That's like impossible speeds compared to what we used to do when driver training started in Ireland. Outside of inner cities, shootings are pretty rare, so no, most Americans never deal with gun violence, despite what movies and media says. I understand, but from the outside, from here, Michigan, or parts of America, look like a bloody war zone. That's really what America looks like right now. It looks like every time you open the front door, someone's taking a pot shot at you. That's all we see. That's how Europe sees you. So I just don't understand why why you're not trying something, trying to figure out what's going on. Istat says better, yes, but not Finnish levels of training. Correct. In Finland, if you want to take a driving test in Finland, you have to do 1 stage of a rally course as part of the test. So yeah, the Finnish have it well sorted out when it comes to driver training, but it does make them a little bit more aggressive. I've driven with Finnish journalists, lovely bunch of guys. I actually had this tobacco thing they put in my mouth. I can't remember what you call it. It's a weird Finland thing. But anyway, I drove with the Finnish guys. They are fantastic drivers, but the problem is they take that fantastic level of driving and put it onto a road in a country that hasn't got a fantastic level of driving, and it didn't quite work out for them so well. It was alright, but it was very good. We should have to take a test every 10 years. Correct. I don't see why we can't do that. My license lasts 10 years. Why don't I have to take a new test every 10 years to make sure I can still drive the car, that nothing much has changed, that I still have both my feet, and I'm still driving basically the same cars, and it should be there. It should be reasonably priced. Number 50 quid, and you take your test again, just to be on the safe side. I had to redo my test in New York. 4-hour safety video. Test was drive around the block, U-turn, and drive back to the test center. Well, it's better than nothing. Better than what we do here, which is nothing. Your death by gun statistics in America are flipping horrendous, says Brian Cunliffe. You're right, yes. None ever. George, I think about George Hook there. No, George Hook has never taken a driving test of any kind whatsoever. I did an interview with him a couple of years back, the Ploughing Championship. He sat there going, I know nothing about cars. I know nothing about cars. And I'm the Peugeot brand ambassador, but I know nothing about cars. And I got handed my driving license. There you go. Read this, please. Okay. 2016 figures Michigan gun deaths 1,230 people in just 1 year. Hello. So there you go. 1,230 people were killed by guns some way or other, whether they were shot by a police officer, they were shot by a civilian, or they shot themselves. Gun violence and deaths in Michigan is 1,230 people. So kind of crazy. Today the Polo is the size of a Golf Mark 5, correct? Feels bigger than that. Feels bigger than that, to be honest with you. When you're actually in it and sitting in it and driving along on it, it feels like a monster. But it's a lovely car, really good, but it's quite big. Gun deaths in the whole of Ireland in the same year is probably about 10. Well, don't be probably about, make sure you have your figures properly. It might be actually be higher than that, because we do have a bit of gun violence here as well. The Hutch and Kinahan gangs and everyone else is in the middle of that, and I'm sure there's other gangs involved there somewhere too who are killing people here as well. So we might have fairly high statistics, you'd be surprised, but still, statistically speaking, Ireland is probably one of the safest countries in Europe. We live in an ultra safe environment. I can go anywhere I want in this country and nobody can stop me. We have unlimited levels of freedom here, and I don't have a gun to back that freedom up. So don't know what the difference is, me going freedom or, you know, America freedom and all that stuff. They need guns to reinforce their freedom, seemingly. Fun fact, the US has 36,000 supermarkets but has 50,000 gun stores. Yeah, I know, it's kind of sad really. It's a bit like our chemists here in Ireland. You know, and we have a lot of chemists in Ireland. You go uptown here, you probably find at least 8 chemists, 9 chemists right here in this town. Just traditional, proper pharmacies like. Of course, the reason for that is the addiction of people to standard over-the-counter drugs. That's it. And you go to the doctor and you get prescribed more painkillers. It's the addiction that people have. That's what they live on. And you know, methadone and all these other things, these addict stuff. Don't do drugs, kids. I know that sounds like a really stupid thing to do, but I've never, as many people say that marijuana is harmless and all, it's all harmless. It's harmless. What's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? I've yet to hear a good story that starts out with, one day I was smoking a joint. I've yet to hear a good story that ends up being, one day I was shooting heroin or whatever. It's just no good stories. So until someone comes up with a good story, I don't see that any drugs are useful to you, even from a pharmacy or painkillers or anything. If you're in pain, you need to deal with what's causing you the pain. Today Mondeo is very often impossible to park in Europe. I can certainly park a Mondeo in Europe. Good fact, say no more. Yep, we're on that. The gun store stat is people who have firearms and technically sell them, not actual stores. There aren't that many, at least in Michigan. That's true. I read that before, actually. There's a certain amount of people who store guns and can sell them privately under a private license, but there's not a physical, actual gun shop you can just walk in off the street and get yourself a gun. It's not that kind of a gun job. Bob, do you think cars will still be bigger and bigger? It's madness. Yeah, I don't think they're going to get any smaller, because generally speaking, we want more stuff in them. So when it comes to a car, we want sat-nav, we want cruise control, we want active cruise control, we want a car to drive itself, we want Bluetooth, we want charging facilities, we want electric, we want hybrids, we want, and so the list goes on of stuff that we're looking for, and you just can't physically fit all that in the car without having crumple zones. That's the problem, is we need to protect the driver inside as well. One time you just shoehorn a big V8 in the front of your knees, and if you crashed, the V8 came into the cabin with you and killed everybody inside. That's so, but now we can't have that happen, right? So now we have to put the V8 out the back of the car because it's safer out there. So if you have a crash, it comes in through the cabin but doesn't kill everybody inside. So I don't think cars are really going to get any smaller until we start using more and more electric cars where the engine is actually physically smaller than a real engine. And then you'll find that we can make cars a bit smaller again. But then we spend more time in cars, so why would you want a small car these days? Look at the Mazda MX-5 sales. That's a small car, and yet can't outsell itself any year. It basically stays flatlines. Stays about the same amount of sales that it always had. I hasn't lost hasn't lost the argument. He lives there. He's more of an insight than we have. We're looking statistically from the outside. From the outside, America looks a very dangerous place to go. I've been there on a couple of occasions. I didn't find any danger whatsoever. But I did feel that sense of when a cop was near me, or when, you know, the police were around, that there was a feeling of threat, of guns. Cops keep their sunglasses on and they keep their face partially hidden. It's good, and they talk right into your face, and there's a very unfriendly, unwelcoming feel to the TSA and the airports and stuff. So there's an element of kind of pressure on, but there's people who live there who are perfectly normal, average Joe Soaps. They don't own a gun, they just live their life, they enjoy themselves, and they don't do a whole lot. So there is an element of that in America. According to the ATF, if you count people with NFA license to deal with, then it goes over 100,000. Oh my god, statistics don't go well, do they? Instead of pills with paracetamol, etc., natural supplements and vitamins are really helping in conjunction with good eating habits. Good eating habits, I would suggest, if your diet is good, if what you eat is good, and you hydrate properly, and you're keeping it clean as whole food, vegetarian, vegan, vegetable, fruit and vegetable stuff diet that you possibly can, you will probably have very little pain on a regular occasions. There are some medical conditions, obviously, that require intervention medically, but those, if they are longer than a 6-month thing, it's going on longer than 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, something else is wrong. There's something more than medical industry understands. Generally, medical industry treats symptoms. They give you something to treat the symptoms, and then you're on your own. Off you go. Good luck. I'll see you in 6 months' time. It should be all fixed by then. Oh, it's not fixed, right? Here's more stuff to treat those symptoms again. And they keep doing that. So generally speaking, I live by the rule. I don't take any painkillers, I don't take any drugs. I don't wake up and have to take any tablets in the morning. None of that sort of stuff. And I try and live by the rule of whole food, whole foods, wherever possible, and try and keep the diet reasonably clean and try and keep well hydrated. And that's kind of, there's the limit of what you need to know about it. If you do all that, you should be okay. If you're getting headaches every day, there's something more wrong with you than painkillers. Need to work it out. Okay, last you're really on the ball there, all right? Yes, sorry I missed something there along the way, but hopefully at this point you've already subscribed. There's still a few of you hanging around. I know there's matches on today and the sun is shining and everything's beautiful out there. We're just up on a 2-hour mark, by the way. It's delightful to have you here. There are a list of links down below if you wish to support this channel in the most possible best way you can. Any donation is always welcome and always appreciated, as many times as I get them. I can never say that enough. This channel wouldn't exist without you. It's nothing to do with car companies. I could go down the Doug Demora route and just hire cars like he does or whatever. It could be possible to do that as well. You can continue to support the channel any way you can. It's absolutely brilliant. We are growing and growing quickly now. It's picking up a bit of steam at this stage, which is quite nice. I will be in Monaco for the next 3 days, so if you're in the area, drop in, say hello. I have no idea where I'm staying around, but you'll see all of the Peugeot 508s around the place. That's where I'll be. Come in and have a chat to us as well. I'll be putting out a video from there as well. Check out Instagram. I tend to do the stories on Instagram and do the videos and things on Instagram before they ever hit YouTube, so you get a good little insight on Instagram as well. So check out those two. Hopefully I've answered everybody's questions today as much as I can. I know the topics have been hugely variety today. We covered absolutely everything. This will go out as a podcast tomorrow, probably tomorrow morning it'll be out as well. It'll be on the Podbean system, or if you're on iTunes or whatever, just go in there and look for Sunday Service or Bob Flavin. Either one, you'll find me there, and subscribe on our podcast page as well while you're there. So thank you very, very much for watching and listening if you're around that way, and hopefully I will see you on the far side.